Hello and welcome to This Contains Garlic. You are here with Georgia Garlic
Mark Garlic.
and we are back for episode 2 of our podcast. We've made it.
Deux.
That was honestly
French.
one of the worst French accents I've ever heard. Anyway, we are back today talking managing your expectations. Something which I think in this industry is probably not spoken about enough, actually.
I think what we would also want to cover today is expectations from people undergoing personal journeys and expectations of trainers or people within the industry have on their clients.
I think also another part of managing your expectations also comes from your support group around you and the expectation that some people have on you to either exceed on something or, make progress. That's something which I think when you come into the industry, I guess the way that I did, and also it's one of these things where your environment is crucially important to your journey. And if you don't have a supportive environment and people are expecting you to make huge amounts of changes, they're not happy with your change, it can end up you being really counterproductive long term. So we are here. What are we going to start with, Mark?
I think probably the best place to start would be with your own personal experiences when you lost a ton of weight. What were your expectations going into the process, both physically and mentally?
That's a really hard question because I don't really think about it like that normally. It feels like quite a while ago, so I can't even remember what my expectation was losing weight. I mean, as I briefly touched on in episode 1, this is definitely not about me and myself and I, but I think in episode 1 we touched on the fact of obviously that I had lost a lot of weight and I went on a journey, but there's a number of things as to why somebody undergoes a journey. It could be personal in the sense that you might find yourself very unhealthy, or you're starting to notice changes in your body that you don't necessarily like, I mean physically and mentally. Or it could come from the fact that other people like to make comments about the way you look. And that, I would say that probably the starting to me, but let's not get into the trauma of childhood. But I guess actually, I came from a very fit and healthy family to a degree. People cared about their health and whatnot. I had a sister who was massively in shape all the time, probably because she had that sort of teenage body, dream body that everybody wanted.
Shout out to Avril Lavigne.
So not to blame it on the fact that my sister was obviously, I had, a mum that was always in shape. I never was brought up around people that were overweight. And when I started to lose weight or wanted to lose weight, I think...
So would you say that there was some expectation placed on you to act a certain way, to be a certain way?
A lot of people will say to you, oh God, she's huge, or oh, you can't fit through the door, or you can't do this, you can't do that. And as somebody that's overweight, you think of it in a way where it's like, my way of behaving over this was in some ways self-sabotaging myself again and again, because what happened was when anybody made a comment about the way I looked or how I behaved, I think instead of me being like, oh, actually, maybe they're doing it out of a sense of care or love, or they don't like the fact that I'm really unhealthy. Instead, I was like, you know what, fuck it. Eat the cake. Where's the Domino's for 4? I'm going to get fucking drunk. I was like the complete opposite. And how many people we've coached actually who at the start of their journeys or anything like that also behave very much the same, because it is one of these things which is...
Would you say that when you were undergoing your own personal journey, did you expect it to be easy? Did you expect it to be hard?
And now
ups and downs?
But this comes down to the fuckery of the industry, in my opinion. I think you're sold a long-term weight loss goal. You're sold the fact that you can achieve all of this and that things are always going to be very, very easy. And I guess when I started to lose weight, as I said and mentioned on episode 1, that we spoke that, basically, when I was wanting to lose weight, I couldn't really find anybody that was decent. And I guess from a female standpoint, not many males understand this. And so I think when I started going into the industry, my expectation was, oh, we're going to be like the biggest loser. Because I think that's really what, that was like the only program that was
Yeah,
around when I was
pretty
like losing
much.
weight, was the biggest loser, which we all actually know statistically doesn't work and is
Yes.
something that is so counterproductive to people long
Yes.
term.
Not very sustainable.
Is it bad to say that? Because I kind of feel there's two ways you can look at it. Like somebody's actually gone on the journey and like excelled. And that's always, you're never always going to excel in your life. This is one thing you need to learn managing your expectations is you're not always going to excel. There's literally going to be times where you excel. Like when you go into an exam at school, you do an exam at school, that's the time where you would potentially excel. But you don't have that all year round. It's not something where you constantly can adhere to it,
I think
constantly making things better or yourself better.
I think when people start a journey, they expect it to go swimmingly, like no setbacks, no adversity, no real life circumstances coming into play that can potentially hinder your progress. And the reality is that's not the case. Like, I'm sure through your own personal journey, there were numerous times where you took 10 steps forwards and 12 steps backwards.
Oh my God, every time that I decided to spend like a huge amount of money on going to like different retreats or, oh my God, is that the next thing? I'll never forget like ordering like fat burners at like, must have been like 1 a.m. in the morning. Couldn't sleep, was like, fuck this, I look shit, I hate myself, all of the things that you do tell yourself. And I know that's quite negative, but this is things that is, I guess, is normal to think. And
Yeah.
it's one of these things that,
We can't ignore the fact that these are realities. And I know it's not exactly the most positive thing, but it is reality. We all sometimes have those negative doubts and those negative feelings, and it's okay to express yourself, and it's a very
and
vulnerable
embrace
moment.
those feelings as well, because without those feelings, I feel like change never really happens. And as I said, like, there are things where people obviously have a lot of, could have mental health issues and whatever, but a lot of that does stem from either our environments or potentially ourselves. And I think, like, it should never be something where we can't embrace the way we're feeling about ourselves, because at the end of the day, you know what you feel like when you're at your best, and you also know what you feel like when you're at your worst. So it is that really important thing of, okay, well, moving on, if we were going to go moving on to like actual expectations, when you set somebody, if you're, very, very overweight and you want to be smaller, we could put it that way, your expectation at the start, which happens most of the time, is you're going to have pretty quick progress. If you were to do all the right things, you will
Sure.
have pretty quick progress.
Essentially.
However, when the quick progress ends,
Yes.
it's another story, because I feel like, as I just said, mentioning earlier, like excelling in your life constantly is just not a thing.
Yeah.
Being perfect all the time is just not a thing.
Correct.
And those moments where like you do take 10 steps forward because you're like, fuck yes, I'm going to start on
Motivation's
Monday. I'm starting on Monday. I've got it.
Best
I've got the
intentions.
Tupperware in the fridge.
Yeah.
Gym's happening at 5 a.m. But yet, before, take yourself back 2 days ago, you liked getting up at literally 9 a.m. in the morning. You don't really like the gym at all. And like the only thing you probably want to eat is just a fucking sandwich, not like the chicken you've prepared that's
Exactly.
been poached and is soggy in the fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
The fucking turbo condensation that sticks on
With
the...
like soggy green vegetables.
Yeah, and you're just like, wow, I've got this. I'm so healthy. Look at my snack. I've
But
got
that
apple
is
and
the
almonds.
expectations that we put out in the industry.
Yeah, this
as
is another
trainers,
thing.
we put it out that eating, not very palatable foods is a daily occurrence, and that, everybody should be eating a bland bodybuilder's diet to a certain degree.
Or not eating, another
Or not
one.
eating.
Or, taking in methods like, we could bring the top ones up. I guess stuff like keto, stuff like fasting.
Sure.
These...
So let's. But I would just want to interrupt you quickly because we're gonna circle back a little bit with regards to expectations. You and I have both been down the road of fad dieting. What were your expectations going into a keto diet or a paleo
Keto is the
diet?
worst, honestly. I nearly passed out doing keto all the time,
But you
honestly.
have the expectations that this whole thing about ketosis, limiting
Well, it's what
carbs,
people
and
sell to you, and this is why I guess like we've taken the approach we have with our business, where we just want to educate people because genuinely, I know there's shit tons of information out there. Like we know there's information out there. Some of it is really good, but it's literally the 2% in the
but it's
98% that's
your
really bad.
expectations that you're gonna constantly see
That
progress
comes from
because
selling it on a
you're.
bottle or selling it on.
But what happens when your expectations are not matched? When the ketogenic diet stops producing results
Well, I think
because
as
you're
as a
not.
woman, I think the next thing is looking for the next best thing. And I mean, we could go on about that, like looking for the next best thing when something doesn't happen or you haven't seen change that quickly. It's like, well, that doesn't work, and then you start to get very influenced by potentially people around you or things you heard on the radio or on the news or whatever, saying different things. You're like, oh, okay, so they're saying that if I have this, then I'm going to lose weight. I remember like grapefruit in the
Yes.
morning was going to start burning
Yes.
fat.
Yeah.
Don't we all wish that?
Bit of apple cider vinegar after your
Heartburn, indigestion, get the Gaviscon out immediately. This is the
your
thing.
double mac meal chased by some apple cider
Yeah,
vinegar.
it's going to absolutely minimal difference. That's the thing. And I think, people always selling you a solution which is not yourself is an issue because you are the solution to your own
Exactly.
goals.
Yeah,
At
that's-
the end of the day, like, you could literally go backwards and forwards over things 24/7. But at the end of the day, no matter who helps you, who advises you, who tells you what to do, at the end of the day, it all does come down to you. And I think that's something people forget. Like, you're like, oh, but I'm trying to be so hard to be something else, when actually most of the time it just comes down to you. And I guess we could also then talk about now moving on to social media because
Yes, I was going to say, touch on that. We had a conversation about this on our walk home from the gym about
okay, that's really,
expectations when it comes to comparing your journeys. It's very easy for us to look online, see somebody who's in shape, and then expect us to kind of live the lifestyles that they live, eat the way that they eat, train the way that they train. But it's also the expectation and the comparison between time frames. You're generally looking at a person that spend the vast majority of their lives dedicating themselves to the way that they look and training and nutrition, and it's the expectation that you need to progress or be in the same kind of shape as that person given the same kind of time frame.
Yeah, I mean, like if you think about it, I could think of a really good example going off of client experiences is when a woman reaches the time of menopause in their life and for some reason, even because their lifestyle, it becomes very, very challenging around that time. Things are possible to happen, but everything, like sleep, how you feel, everything like that comes into play. But your expectation in yourself is that you need to be, losing weight, or you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, we all know that like symptoms of things reduce when your body fat levels are lower than higher. But, at the time of your life when you are about to go through something like menopause, or you are going through menopause, is the right expectation to be, oh God, I've got to get in a bikini, or I need to do this, or I feel shit about myself, constantly looking at yourself, putting yourself down, when actually you're going through something which should be more, I guess, managed in a way, rather than just expecting that you're going to be just the way you used to be, or have loads of energy to suddenly lose that weight. I mean, like we sometimes have in the background when we're working, like those TV programs like This Morning and stuff like that. And I guess like Loose Women, that's a prime example,
Exactly.
where people can like make comments on, I guess, how you're feeling at that time. If we're going back to the menopausal situation, you know, a lot of people will tell you their symptoms and will tell you things, and sometimes it doesn't really make you feel much better. But they'll also tell you, oh, how to manage those symptoms. You need to start strength training, high protein diet. You need to make sure you're tracking your calories. Okay, cool. We know that because we've banged on about it for so many years. Now, some people might not know that, and those are the ones that need to be educated on it. But in the time of their life, is that what you want to be hearing? Not really, because you're not feeling great most of the time. So I think it's one of these things where if you do managing expectations on looking at somebody on social media or bringing in information from something like that, like there are so many people that have developed their lives, I mean, intensely developed their lives before social media was about. I mean, if you think about it, stuff like stories where we genuinely shared, you know, stuff 24/7 has really only been about for a few years now. Past couple of years. I mean, like, in the sense it's definitely grown. But before it was like a photo of somebody's life. Like, that was, you know, that's all you really knew about it. So if you saw somebody in the gym training, it was a photo of them doing something, and you could make your own assumption off of that.
Exactly.
When it became bad, in my eyes, was when people started legitimately sharing every second part of their day, how many calories they were eating, when you're training, when this, and then people were like, oh, well, she's a female, he's a male, that he's my age, he looks like he's got, you know, a thriving life, and he's super healthy, and oh god, he's got a six-pack, or she's got abs. And realistically, like, they've spent the past many years.
It's like comparing apples and oranges, because you're comparing yourself to something completely different generally to your normal day-to-day life. If you're a working professional that has a 9 to 5, has to travel, has kids, has other obligations outside of gym, and you know, it's the expectation that you need to constantly be living some sort of lifestyle 24/7, 365
I don't
days
think,
a year.
you know, what is the thing is that I know people would potentially get a coach for a period of time, or, you know, they'd have a personal trainer in the gym, or they'd start going to classes, or they might do anything. But it is one of these things where I just feel like when it comes to your own journey, you can really only look at it as to what you can manage, you know. And as I say, like, we have so many clients that have like children, or, you know, where their life is not thinking about the gym or their nutrition 24/7. And this is the thing, we think about nutrition and exercise a lot more than your average person because it's our job. But this is where a good coach and potentially not so good coach, I guess, come into play, because we genuinely do realise that people have lives that they live without the words nutrition and exercise. Protein. You know, if you're going off like social media, some of these people that you're seeing, you know, they do have the life of... Actually, let me just take back. There's a lot of people you see online that actually don't train very hard and don't really do much, but they just look really good in a photo. So just remember that, point one. I think it's not always about them in the gym or doing something. There are a lot of people who can pose and look great in minimal clothing. And that is also an expectation that a lot of people do put on themselves, is off of a photo where somebody's literally stood and... I mean, we all know. But
there's a lot of expectations between people in an older generation comparing and expecting to look like younger, somebody like in their 20s or 16 or, you know, things like that. This is
a problem with social media, though, because it's not a problem. I guess you open your eyes up to so many things, but there is a problem because it's like... when did we ever really need to know all of this stuff about people?
Too much.
Like, it's just too much, because... You know, if you want to manage your expectations going into a journey, and you're literally we've had loads of clients do this where somebody else is the background of on their wallpaper on their phone. Like, how fucked is that? Honestly, it's like, I'll never forget a client had the randomest person. She was a wife of a footballer, she had like ripped stomach, obviously ketosis, selling the sticks, you know, obviously there's obviously a discount code in there. And she had this woman as her background on her phone. And I was just like, whoa, like, what is that? And she was like, I'm going to get to that. Like, I'm going to be that person. But there's so many people I also know who have got into amazing shape like 6 years ago, it hasn't been very sustainable.
Yeah.
And their phone background is still them 6 years
So
ago.
would you say that the expectations as we as coaches as well that we place on
Oh
our
my God.
clients and on the general population
So high.
is unrealistic?
Yeah, I'd say it's not necessarily unrealistic. It depends on your approach as a coach. I think, if you're aware of how hard these things are, they're not hard to fit into your life, but to be consistent on something, and I'll say this time and time again, you are going to have days, weeks and months where you are not consistent with something, and that is absolutely fine. There are
Expecting to be perfect is also a massive downfall as well.
we could also talk of the fact of expecting you've injured yourself in the gym, but you're expecting a miracle within 2 weeks to fix something. Sure. Or another expectation would be, I've got really shit posture, my fucking back hurts. Do you know what I mean? You've been like that for 35 years and you want to fix within one session, or why is my back still sore, or why did my legs still hurt? And it's like, you've literally sat in that body for 35 years and then you're expecting
to see a result overnight,
which is just not realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, again and again and again, I'll go back to the fact that I think the industry is the main cause of this, and it's not just our industry. I think it's people that think they're part of our industry as well, or can make comment on it,
which is everybody.
I mean, we were going to do another podcast which about why it's such a conversation starter, exercise and nutrition. It's like a never-ending thing.
What are you doing? Who are you training with? What diet are you on? Oh my gosh, I'm doing the cabbage soup diet.
And it's like, oh my God, you look amazing. Your arms are so toned. And it's like, yeah, I've been doing X's method. And then it's like, oh, even though you've been doing really well on your own, suddenly, you're going to go stare the other way. Exactly. But I think, anybody that will go down to the root cause of it, I think we've all been sold a quick fix. And I think, unfortunately, with the way things are progressing, food at your door instantly, things online orders instantly, get anything instantly, that we are literally striving for the next dopamine fix. We need to be satisfied some way. And when you don't get satisfied and you have to be consistent on something, it all goes to shit, because you're like, why can I not have this now? And unfortunately, majority of people that decide to embark on a personal journey, you're doing it because you have reasons behind it, but those reasons shouldn't be based off of
a result.
Because
they should be based off the collective sum of your habits that you complete on a day-to-day basis that helps you live a better life mentally and physically now and in the future.
The thing is, though, I think people always think, and we've mentioned this as well on our social media, that exercise and nutrition needs to be implemented into your lifestyle. It's not the case. It's a way of life. Your way of life now might be, I go to the gym once a week, I don't track my calories, do you know what I mean? That's your way of life. When you think about nutrition and training, it should be based off of the fact of your way of life, not we're going to do something drastic or bring something in. We'll go back to what we said, before. You are your only solution.
Exactly.
I'm talking this is on a holistic lifestyle side, not on a sense of a medical side. That's a very different situation. But if you're managing your expectations of training nutrition, you are your own solution.
Yes.
And if you're, making things that are unrealistic happen in your life, you're just not going to be able to sustain anything that's worthwhile long term. No. It's one of these things.
With the expectations as well, another thing that I would like to flesh out with you is, especially from a coaching standpoint, when you have a client come to you and they say to you, for example, I want to lose 10 kgs, but that level of expectation, putting an exact figure or number on it, might be different once they start to strength train and build a little bit of muscle mass, and it's the expectation of striving to a specific number, and not a look or a feel. Everything is attached to, I want to weigh X amount and I expect to lose weight every single week. I expect to weigh the same weight that I weighed when I was 18 years old and I'm a 50-year-old man.
Yeah, but also you could go off the fact that I'll never forget biology. at school where they literally, I mean, I was an overweight child, so I mean, for somebody like me, it was like literally die, like the minute you had to step on a scale in front of people. But they made us step on scales for some or other fucking reason. And I remember, I mean, at that time, you're literally compared to like a rat of a child who's like fucking 30
all
kilos.
growing at different rates,
All growing at different rates. And you're made to stand on a scale and it's like, you weigh this. And then your whole project is based off your fucking weight. And that is where it starts. And this is the thing. When we've had things like lose 20 pounds, lose 5 pounds, lose 4 pounds, lose this, that sets in its own right, enough standard in its, to put those expectations on yourself that you can do that. I mean, also you could probably bring up the fact that I want to lose 10 kilos and I want to lose it in the next 4 weeks. Yes. That's also an expectation, which is
a short-term expectation.
Look, it's achievable if you want to starve yourself and have a miserable time. We all know it's achievable, but you're still not willing to get with the science. So even if it is achievable or not, you're not really understanding the process. Correct. And I can guarantee, I mean, I used to get, when I was training, people face to face in gyms, I used to get women that would be like, right, my wedding's in 3 weeks and I can't fit on my dress. And I'm like this.
Let's go.
Alarm bells. Yeah, literally, let's go. Let's go. Now. We're never stopping. It's 24 hours training. You can't breathe.
Let's do 2 a day. Let's cut the carbs. Let's do, all the things that are not sustainable long term.
And then you come back from the honeymoon and it's an absolute disaster. You hate yourself for it. And it happens, it's that self-sabotage cycle.
But it's also the expectations of doing it. Oh, I'm going to do this for 10 weeks. And then after the 10 weeks, once I've achieved such an amazing result, that's just it. The expectations of starting something and then not having to, or not applying the same amount or more effort into the process. It's
because majority of people's goals comes off of a holiday. Now, if you're British and listening to this in the sense of the fact you live in a country which, let's be honest, the weather might be nice at the weekend, but it's not exactly sparkling sunshine, ocean blue seas. Do you know what I mean? It's
There's
pebbles
a
at Brighton.
There's a reason why us Zimbabweans call this place Mud Island.
Why are you here then? Exactly.
For the women.
For the women, great. But, it's one of these things, if you are in Britain right now, like, you would probably be like, it's probably, well, with the cost of living currently, who fucking knows? But, like, a lot of people want to go on holiday because they want to have that thing where it's like, oh, I'm in the sunshine, I need to get some sun. Now, majority of people's goals also end up being the holiday.
Yes.
But nothing after the holiday.
No.
So as long as they've got that one photo, on a dinghy in Spain, do you know what I mean? Like, that's all that fucking matters. It's
shirt off on Ibiza.
Yeah, shirt on Ibiza, tents with the lads, few drinks. Oh God, do you know what I mean? It's like, and then when you don't see what you're used to seeing, that's when it's like, well, it's pointless. It didn't work anyway. Exactly. And then you'll save yourself still as your screensaver 10 years later with abs, Yeah. But I guess also what I want to point out is, I guess what Mark said earlier was about coaches having too much expectation on their clients. If you're a coach and you're listening to this, we do have too much expectation on the general population. Yeah. Unless you are listening to this and you are training athletes, which their whole life is to dedicate towards sport, it should be, very, very different things. But if you're talking about general population, you need to lower your expectations, not in a negative way. No. You just need to be more realistic.
They need to adjust.
Adjust it, because we have time and time again, we have people that come to us, which I feel like, because we are a married couple, we seem to be the married couple of training. Like, once you're married to us, hopefully there's no divorce. Exactly. But it seems to be one of those things where we're last, Yeah. We're like the last.
We pick up the broken pieces.
Yeah, the broken
put everybody
pieces
back together to allow them to live a more fulfilled, long-term.
And I what you could say is we are obviously the married couple to your training. But if you are,
but it is true, we need to adjust our expectations of people, because everybody's got their own background, from long work hours, working night shifts, people with children, people in our industry, because we love exercise and You
Yeah.
know, it's
I mean,
not
sometimes you
like
could.
Georgia said. It's 2% of most people's day, and it's
2%, I
not.
wouldn't even sometimes put it on that, and that's fine. Do you know what I
Sure,
mean? We all have
that's
better
fine.
things to be thinking about,
No, of
but
course.
we should also be in control of like our lifestyles because that's what makes us feel better and are healthier overall long term.
Yeah.
But I think having the expectation on a client that you can whack them on a plan which you think is really tasty. Like, I'm sick of it. I'm going to say it
Yeah,
now. I'm going to make a
yeah.
big
You need to
statement.
say it. You need to.
Influencers that promote protein powder have no understanding of taste
Taste
at
buds are
all.
gone.
It is. Oh, love it. Oh my God, you can mix it in everything.
No.
Protein powder. Oh my God, I love it. It's like my chocolate sweet treat. It doesn't taste of fucking chocolate. It doesn't taste the way you want it to do.
No.
You know, it really, that's
No.
one thing.
Only if you
Manage
put
your
peanut
expectations when buying
butter,
shit because it's not going to taste like the Cadbury
bit of
twirl
peanut
you'd
butter,
rather
bit
eat.
of ice, bit of cinnamon. You know,
Yeah,
you're
like, you
making
know,
a whole concoction, but generally your average protein powder is sickly.
oh, horrible. Anyway, going off of protein, I guess we're going back to managing expectations with coaches.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's interested in your
But they're very bland general diets that you do see, which is very non-palatable things. It's also you have to cut out this, you have to cut out that, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it's the expectation that someone's going to enjoy that whilst trying to achieve
Yeah, I
their
mean, if
goals.
I was to go off my own starting point, though, I will say that, you know, when I first started like I would say my main weight loss journey, in the sense where I didn't fuck around in between, I took myself to a place very in the middle of sweet fuck all, really, to sort myself out. Not a rehab, but a weight loss camp to a degree,
Yeah.
where I followed a paleo lifestyle. And I have to say, like, it did help in the sense of me finding structure in my day-to-day life, following something that I guess gave you that, I don't know,
But you're also in a place where that structure
is
and everything
implemented.
it's not only implemented, but it's set up for you to kind of do. All you need to do is just walk into the situation and participate. But the expectation, do you think that there was, or did people there place an expectation on you to upkeep that type of exercise regime, nutrition regime
I mean,
once
it
you
depends
left?
because I can't. I'm not going to mention names of companies and stuff because, like, I do have very strong and good feelings towards the one that I spent a lot of time at because they did really help me to every extent. But the ones I tried previously, I mean, they the average day was wake up, exercise by literally 6 a.m. You've got it done at least at some sort of AMRAP of like hit of some degree. You've then got a breakfast where I was fed, I mean, barring the juicing ones I did and all of that nonsense, I was fed like a quarter of a piece of rye bread and like a quarter egg, and that was meant to sustain me for the whole fucking day. And then after that, straight away, because you've got some army sergeant shouting at you, you're back into a hit session with indigestion, and then and then you're like another hit session after your measly lunch, which is
Yeah, like an
basically
apple.
fuck all. And then you're on a hike for 13 miles, come back, another training session.
Yeah, so basically, you know, you're definitely going to see progress if your goal is weight loss, like anybody
Yeah,
can do
quickly.
that.
I mean, I lost 21 pounds in a week on one of them, and I
Yeah.
literally piled it all back on. I reckon in the week afterwards,
Yeah,
I probably
the
smashed
bounce.
like 7 Nando's, and
Yeah, I like
you know, I really went at it. And I remember that car journey home just being like, I'm going to self-sabotage myself. Like, where are the mini rolls?
because the expectations placed on you were just
Too high.
Too high.
But then also you're coming back into this environment when you've been to a place like that, like totally managing expectations. But we could also talk about now is your environment.
Yes.
So you're coming back where people are like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, why do people say wow when
Yeah.
people have lost loads of weight? Like, it's
You know, you don't know the context behind that person losing weight. Is it from illness? Is it from grief? Is
yeah,
it
there's
from
so much
a
behind
drug addiction?
it. But suddenly you look great
Yeah, all
because,
of a
like, oh
sudden
my God,
you're
your body
amazing.
fat's lower.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, how fantastic do you look? And then people also feel the need to, like, comment on it on social media or, like, oh my goodness, like, what have you done? Like, also, that's another thing. What have you done? Do you know what I mean? like whether or not I'd done something ridiculous or not, I just embarked on a journey of some degree to try and make myself healthier,
I guess what we also need to clear the areas and be 100% transparent is we also understand these expectations from a coach to a client, because we've unfortunately been in the situation where our knowledge was not up to date. And
Yeah, at the start,
I've
my
put
God.
clients on ketogenic diets and a whole bunch of crazy, not crazy stuff, but like fad diets, and
No,
been
I
on
think
them
yours was more
myself.
just quite limited calories
Yeah, but
and a
I've
little bit bland. I wouldn't
people
say
that have
yours
trained
was
to have
too
trained.
faddy, I
Yeah, but
think.
there were moments where somebody got a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, I
Do you know
know,
what I
because
mean? And
cheese and
telling
steak
them
is like
to
the only thing you should ever
their
eat.
chrono timing of their nutrition, and that they're going to eat in an 8-hour fasting
But if we
period.
actually
And
were to take this back, you were dealing with clients in a very, very high end, and they were always very, very high
yeah,
end,
but
private studios where you're dealing with either celebrities or people who want to be fucking
yeah, but the
tiny.
expectation for you to just complete some form of fad diet generally for your average individual is not a likely outcome.
People also just don't want to know how much they actually eat. They really don't want to know because we always underestimate. So putting somebody on a diet or regime where they're
Yeah, the
effectively not acknowledging
yeah.
necessarily what they're eating, it's all just a little bit, I guess, building.
But learning from that, because we've placed expectations on clients that are unrealistic, we realize what works and what doesn't work. And what generally tends to work long term is getting an individual, like Georgia said, to be their own solution.
Yeah, and that's also, I guess, also a bit of a problem because when to a certain degree, because unfortunately you can have your hand held throughout this process, but like nobody's doing it for you. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And the expectation that somebody will do it for you is not an expectation you
also
should
it's just
have.
like it can't be done unless you're
No.
going to go and get like
No,
a surgeon.
you can have the best trainer, the best program, the best professionals. If you yourself do not apply things on a day-to-day basis, the expectation of you progressing towards your goal is going to be slim.
Yeah, and I think that for coaches expecting that, I'll never forget when you put on that stupid diet by a bodybuilder where you had to eat like, was it like 300 grams of mashed potato breakfast, packet of wine gums?
Oh yeah, it was
Fucking,
crazy.
you were doing like 15 back-to-back clients, and suddenly you had to
250
prepare like
grams of trout in the morning with 100 grams of beef and cheese and eggs. I was like, bro, how am I going to cook all of this at 5 o'clock in the morning?
5 o'clock, more like 4.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing. You're a night owl when you work in the industry, and especially face
Would you
to
like
face.
to touch on expectations as a fitness professional to be in shape, being in the industry, or do you think there's
Oh
an
my God.
expectation to look a certain way or be a certain way? Because, like, and we're going to harp on this until the cows come home. The general idea of this industry is just you're shredded, you got abs, you're lean, you are.
But people have openly said, general population, when people have asked this, we even asked this, I think, to our audience, if you'd seen us exercise or the way that we looked, would it mean that you would potentially purchase from us? And it was 100% yes.
100%.
Now, if you were one of those people, I'm sorry to bring up, but that's kind of worrying because, as a professional in our own right, we know a lot of stuff. Do you know what I mean? We've been in the industry for many, many years, and we've also educated ourselves thoroughly throughout this process. So, but like for some reason you can't be in this industry, and I still don't think it's changed. I know there was a lot of body positive movement and people being very free with themselves, but I still don't think it's changed. No. If you are overweight or you are carrying weight as a trainer, people don't like it.
Yeah, there's that whole thing of in the comment section, why would we listen to you when you don't look a certain way?
Yeah.
And it's that expectation of both male and female or even depending on how old you are, that there's a certain expectation that you need to look a certain way to be
Yeah.
taken seriously. And even if you look a certain way, you can just take your shirt off,
I think honestly, this has
and
come from
people
more of
just
an online
expect
coaching
you.
business than it has a face-to-face business. I will say that face-to-face, you definitely need to look like you do something. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, somebody's going to be like, why the fuck would I do this? I mean, the amount of clients that have back chatted me when I've trained them and been like, oh my God, you've got no idea. And I'm like, I have a lot of ideas. Like literally, I'm like,
All the
I
ideas.
know all the ideas. But, you know, it is one of these things where as a face-to-face trainer in a gym, I guess you are your own image if you want to pick up clients or you're on the gym floor or whatever. But online, that is where it gets nasty to a degree, because not only do you spend a lot of time comparing yourself to other individuals, you are then an image, like legit
Yeah.
image.
You
Like,
are your own
yeah,
brand.
and
You
so
are a marketing tool.
and
So
it's
looking a
sad
certain
though.
way definitely helps. Push you to the top of the pile. Much like when you see somebody driving a
But
Lamborghini
Mark,
or a
we
nice
know some
car,
people in
you just
fantastic shape, but they really don't have too many brain cells to rub together. And I appreciate that. Unfortunately, our industry
yeah, you
is
just
not
need to like
necessarily what you
exercising
know.
and not have a very strong palate for
But it's not what you know, it's
chocolate
what you
and
look
ice cream.
like, unfortunately. Yeah, tea cakes.
Yeah, but much like everything in this world, it's not what you know, it's who you know or
No,
what you.
it's not who you know, it's what you look like in this industry. It's
Yeah,
not
in
what
this
you know,
industry.
it's literally what you look like or
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
exercise. And that's your whole image. Like, it's kind of a bit fucked up, to be quite honest with
it
you.
is. It
Because,
is.
you know, I said this to you the other day, didn't I, Mark? I said, but when you go to a doctor, you're looking at their information as to whether they're qualified in something or they're a specialist in a certain
Yes.
thing, or you're going to a GP because you know that they're a general practitioner in
Qualified
overall
or
health.
experienced.
Okay, but you're not going to your GP because your GP's got fucking six pack, are you?
No.
Or your GP doesn't have a spot on the face or the arms and the lean
You
and
don't care
whatever.
what
You
your
don't
GP
give a
looks like as
fuck, do
long as
you?
they fix you.
You turn up to the appointment. You don't care what they look like. They're there to help you, and that
Exactly.
is what a coach, in my opinion, should really be. Like,
Yes.
why the fuck do we need to look a certain way
Yeah.
to then help somebody else in their journey? I appreciate we need to have an understanding and appreciation for a
Yes.
nice, healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
That's cool. But basing exactly body fat percentage to body
No.
fat percentage and actually not putting what somebody knows before that is a really, really stupid thing to do.
It
in
is
my
a low
opinion.
hanging fruit, and I guess that's how people kind of identify that you might be under the assumption that because that person
It's
is in
also
shape.
incredibly engaging. We love to see other
Why
people's
though?
bodies, other people's exercising. I don't know. Some could probably say it's motivational.
Sure.
And I'm sure
Okay.
there are a few individuals in the world that's seen something and have been like, actually, do you know what? This is about fucking time I do something. You know, thanks for motivating me. And I had a lot of people that used to say, when I ever really very briefly shared my journey, maybe for a year or so, over social media, I used to have so many people say,
But how do you think people feel when they look at a certain individual, buy into their methods, expecting to look a certain way, and not achieving their results because they were
yeah.
mismarketed to, and then are left feeling like they themselves are broken or that there's something wrong with them, when in reality the expectations to look a certain way or to act a certain way were just unrealistic from the start?
Yeah, but unfortunately, we're in a world which makes money all the time, and money speaks more than that. And so, for a lot of people who will pump out a program or something like that, like they've probably actually never really coached anybody in their life face to face, making a very big statement. A lot of
So
people
they're
actually.
not cognizant of the expectations
No.
placed in the first place.
No, it's like, I've got abs, I've got a nice arse,
And
I've got
just
nice
listen to
arms,
what
do you know
I'm
what I mean?
telling
Something
you.
like that. I'm going to pump out a program because you all can have it too. And I do know of a fair few people who have opened up about that recently and said like how much money they made from just literally pumping out programs based off what they look like. Because it was, and it still is
Do you
what they
think
look like.
people within our industry should be held accountable for placing those kind of expectations? Like, for example, many moons ago, there was a very strong drive towards eating a certain way or
No, I'm going
training
to
a
stop you there
certain
because
way.
I'm really against cancel culture. This is another podcast we're going to talk about. Is the fact that like, are we, are we always what we used to be?
Ah,
Because
that's true.
because that is
That
true,
is true
Mark. That
because
is
I
true.
could be held. That being said,
You could be held accountable,
I could be
Mark. You
held
could be held
accountable.
accountable for that bloody ketogenic
Yeah,
diet.
that's true.
Like,
That's
you know,
true.
you didn't do anything that
That's
bad,
true.
Mark. You were always a very good
No, but I
trainer.
was always
I'll,
under the assumption that, when there was no PubMed and there was no evidence-based research that was easily accessible, you were trying to obtain your
knowledge off of
knowledge from other
literally.
people, and people like Charles Poliquin and other
Yeah, who's
huge heads
still
in
to the day,
the
even though he's passed away,
yeah
is still to the day. His methods are
yeah
his, and some of what he has to say, and obviously in base of it
you know
isn't
he was
fantastic.
he
But
was like, if you were over 20% body fat, you shouldn't eat carbs, and like you need
yeah, I
to
mean, this
earn
is
the
the
right,
problem
and
because so many people
you know
have got their methods and they are, and it works for them. So
you
don't
know
ever think that you're going to tell them otherwise.
Yeah,
That's
because
also another thing.
there are people that can, for example, go full keto and never look back and see some progress,
Yeah,
and it doesn't
and
really
that's
bother
cool,
them.
but it shouldn't even be a talking factor in my
Yeah,
opinion. The fact
no,
that we
that's
even
true. So
actually like,
I guess, yeah, what you're saying right about, we're not the same people that we were 10 years ago. So
so no, I don't really necessarily
yeah,
think we need to be held
okay, I
accountable,
take
but
it
any
back.
action that we do going forward needs to be in a positive manner.
Yeah,
Like it needs to be actually helping somebody rather than helping your fucking self. Because at the end of the day, if you are a coach or a trainer, your job is to help people. It is like being a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant. You are there to serve people and you are there to, and so whether a method worked for you or not, you need to understand your client quickly, because
yeah,
otherwise you are going to lose them, either
yeah.
not be able to retain them, or two, just like not really get anywhere. And if you do, you're doing things the wrong way, in our
Well,
opinion. Like,
it would be productive to make sure that your expectations you place on your client are positive. They enjoy the process, because once they enjoy the process and they see results, what do? They go and tell all their friends, and then their friends come and train with you, and that's how you build a brand face to
yeah.
face, is by making sure people not only A, get results, but B, enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think I think a lot of the time these things are so unenjoyable. Like, and
Yeah,
that's the main thing. I
it
think
is.
is you don't want things to be not
And it doesn't
enjoyable.
have to be like, you can still eat out, you can still socialize, and there, you don't have to shy away. You don't have to cancel all your social engagements and things like that. Yes, you might have to deal with a bit of peer pressure here and there, people trying to get you to do things that might be counterproductive to your goals, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a prison of self-care habits where you feel
Yeah,
like you're locked away and it's really unenjoyable, because placing
yeah,
that expectation on a client is
yeah. It's just
it's
it
no good.
is it's not really thinking of the client, and that somebody's paying you to help them at the end of the day. Like, that's how you need to see it. And if you don't help them, then what have you done? Like, and I think rounding up the conversation in a degree, like, you just need to understand that when you set goals or anything in your life, it could be, I don't know, financial, health,
Sure,
anything like that.
sure.
Like, you don't, unless you win the lottery,
Yes,
which is I mean, actually there was a person in the UK that won it twice.
yes, there
God,
was.
what?
Yeah,
Why, we've got no luck.
250 twice.
250. You say
Yeah,
like 250, you mean 250 million,
no, it
was
was
it?
250,000 twice.
Oh, well, okay, that's still pretty
Yeah,
decent. Like, literally,
he
like,
won it on a scratch card, and then when he went to reenact it with the local news, he basically got another scratch card out, re-scratched it like as a joke, and basically won another 250,
that is what people call
which
luck.
is luck.
Yeah.
But generally,
But
what
generally it
happens?
becomes luck is not a thing. It comes
No,
down to action, and it comes down to,
exactly.
okay,
Effort.
if you have got a big journey ahead of you, however large or small, be realistic. Look over your life over the next weeks, months. See what is feasible for you to actually adhere to.
And don't place heavy expectations on yourself to constantly be perfect, constantly nail the process, to constantly hit every target. It is not. It generally sometimes will happen, but you'll generally get 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, which is perfectly fine. And
Yeah.
you
And
know.
you know, as I said, see it as a way of life rather than implementing something like
Yeah.
each an individual thing, because it should be a way of life. We should strive to move our bodies in a way that
Consistently.
makes us happy, and also, you know, eat a diet which fuels us to have a better and more productive lifestyle. So if you are going on a journey, we're glad you've got this far, literally,
Yeah,
on this
but
sense.
you know,
And maybe you're in the middle of your journey now. Who knows? Like, you might be starting, you might be, you know, you might be thinking of giving up. Who knows? Just realize that everything you see in this world, you know,
take it with a pinch of salt.
take it with a pinch of salt. Don't expect an instant result. You wouldn't expect to be a multimillionaire overnight, working, you know, a
Like
9 to 5
everything in
office
life.
job.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing.
It's the
You've
same-
just got
it's
to
the same
compare
thing.
the two and realize what works for you. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. You know, don't try and merge to other people's things, and manage your expectations in the long term, because otherwise you will end up disappointed.
Yeah, you don't want to end up in a negative cycle of going around placing such high expectations on yourself, not achieving them, beating yourself up about it, and just constantly going round and round and round thinking that you are the problem. It's not the case. It's just a few tweaks here and there, adjusting
And you can
of
be your own
expectations.
solution pretty much overnight. That's one of the quickest fixes,
Yeah.
is you can realize that you are your own
Take
solution.
accountability, know that you're the only person that can fix it, and
And also just listen to people. That don't get too excited
Yeah.
by the things that people sell you shit, because there's always, sales is engaging. If it wasn't, we wouldn't buy anything. So just remember that, you know, people will preach their methods, but you need to work out how you're going to manage your expectations in the long term. And if things don't match up, then you need to say no. Anyway, that is the end of episode 2 today. We hope you enjoyed listening to us, and we will see you next
we'll
time.
see you. Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Bye.